You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, and politics is our game. And we will be doing lots of politics and public policy this evening because you're going to see two aldermanic candidates from Chicago from two different wards. They're not running against each other, but they're still going to be interesting. If you don't live in that ward, don't worry. A lot of the issues are very similar throughout the city of Chicago. They're even similar outside of Chicago, into the suburbs, even across states, even into China. Well, that might be a bit of an exaggeration, but anyway, our first candidate and our first guest is Omar Aquino. He is a candidate for alderman in the 36th ward. We'll talk a little bit about where that is as we get into the show. And our second candidate, our second guest for the second half of the show will be Anthony Napolitano, running in the 41st ward. We'll come back to Anthony and talk more about that race. But let's just start, Omar, talking about the 36th ward race. We're taping this on March 18th. On February 24th, you had multiple candidates running, 4, right?
That's correct.
The top two, people don't realize this, the way Chicago's set up for their aldermanic elections, if nobody gets 50%, then the top two do a runoff, just as this mayoral race. That's why Chuy Garcia is running against Rahm Emanuel, because nobody got 50% in that race. You were the top vote getter with 36%, right?
That's correct.
And in second was Gilbert Villegas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there were two other candidates, Christopher Vittorio with 24%. Notable because has Christopher endorsed anybody?
No, Chris has endorsed me as of 2 weeks ago, just a week after the election. Chris has officially endorsed me. We've been knocking on doors. He sent out a letter on my behalf and just letting all his supporters know that he's endorsing me. And also we've sent out already some mailers as well with some additional endorsements that I have received. Not only him, but Tony Preckwinkle has endorsed me coming into the runoff as well.
So, you know, you've got 36%. You get the guy who was in second or in third place with 24%. If nothing else changes, that gives you 60%.
The 36th ward now encompass just portions of certain
what are they?
Neighborhoods. I would say Hermosa, Belmont-Cragen, Montclair, Shorts Village, and Portage Park.
And geographically, east, west, north, south?
Essentially goes west to Sayre, between Sayre and Narragansett, from Grand to Roscoe.
So Sayre is on the west boundary, Narragansett on the east?
On the east, but it does go east of Narragansett.
In some portions.
In some portions. North, it goes east to Lockwood, between Henderson and Warwick. And on the southern end, it goes significantly east from Narragansett to Costner, from Grand to Fullerton in the north.
So, and we didn't mention there was a fourth candidate, Alonzo Zaragoza. He got 8% of the vote. He's not endorsed anybody yet. So.
He hasn't officially endorsed anyone at the moment. I'm hoping by the time this airs, maybe he has come on board and we have reached out to him.
If somebody wants to be on this show, they will be on the show, okay? I mean, Barack Obama ran for president. From 2000 to 2004, we had him on 6 times. I just say, if Barack Obama, a guy who's going to become president of the United States, has time to appear before his viewers for the state Senate and then for the U.S. Senate race, and you're somebody like Gilbert Villegas, and you don't have time, just think about that. He doesn't have time. Yeah. Because the thing to remember about Barack Obama when he was running in the Democratic primary in that 2004 tough U.S. Senate Democratic primary, he had 6 competitors, and I said to him, what differentiates you from your competitors? He said, Jeff, I know the issues, I have a vision, and I speak out. I would have thought every politician would do it, but Gilbert Villegas, apparently not so much. It's not an insult not to be on my show, but you folks are the viewers. You folks who are watching are the voters who are in the 36th ward. If you don't see Gilbert here, hey, not my problem, not my fault. If you don't know his positions on the issues, we're going to find out his positions. Well, we're going to find out, well, I don't know, we're not going to find out Gilbert's positions, but we are going to find out Omar Aquino. What is the #1 issue in your ward, as you see it?
So, quite honestly, none of these issues are in silos where you can't deal with the issues that are facing the 36th ward, just pointing to one thing. But I would say 2 of the major concerns in the ward from many of my neighbors is public safety and city services. And those are things, quite honestly, public safety is a concern, I think, citywide. But crime. It's
a big issue between Garcia and Rahm Emanuel. Mm-hmm. You know, Garcia said he would bring more cops. Rahm said he brought more cops by redeploying and by taking people, you know, from, say, desk duty to being out in the neighborhoods. but it's a big issue. They're still just talking about that now. They will be talking about it. What would you do to make the 36 wards safer? Can you, as one alderman, do anything to make the 36 wards safer?
Well, I mean, there's certain things that absolutely we can work together as a community to make sure that our community is safe. And I think the alderman is, and their office can play a
So what would you
vital
do?
role.
We only got 15 minutes, so let's go quick.
I would say number one, I'm a proponent of hiring more police officers. Right now in the city of Chicago, we've spent over $100 million for overtime. And so it's one of those things, obviously there's a need for having more police officers in our department. And so we want to make sure that the morale isn't low there and that we have more police officers there. But that doesn't solve all the issues in terms of crime. We want to make sure that we have after-school programs both at our schools and at our parks. We want to make sure that we have year-round employment opportunities for our high schoolers and programs like that in our community to make sure that we can try to engage them in meaningful things and not hopefully avoid sort of joining gangs and other things like that. And so get them on the right path early.
And so your opponent, what would his view on crime? Do you know?
I don't know. I mean,
We don't know it. We're not even going to speculate because he chose not to be here. So you think you can be independent in the sense you could work with either Chewy or Rom to get good services for your ward?
Absolutely, and you see several aldermen quite like Omar Aquino, who is in the 47th ward, won without, against all odds last time around, and has done well for his ward. Actually, someone who's in his ward is actually the mayor himself.
You went to CPS. Obviously, you came out well. Mm-hmm. You went to Loyola, right? So you graduated from CPS. Graduated from what was your major at Loyola?
Both sociology and criminal justice.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So obviously, you didn't have major problems there. But you know that 25% of the kids, black and Hispanic, read at grade level. 75% don't read at grade level in the 4th grade. So that's a major problem. I imagine a lot of that is true. Do we know in the 36th ward, would you say only 25% of the kids in CPS read at grade level? Or do you think they're doing better when we're talking black and Hispanic kids?
I would say that certainly we need to focus on making sure that we have professional educators in our schools and that we have the adequate resources available for them to give
okay, but we've got 4 minutes left, so I got to be, that's why I'm cutting you off.
Sure.
We've got to get to the nub here. This is perhaps some would say the most important issue. Do you know your opponent's issue on education? Has he spoken out about it?
I'm not really sure. I would say
so we don't even know. We're not even going to speculate because he's not here. That's how much he cared about you and education. It's not an insult to me. I don't care because I got a guest here. I'm fine, but you don't know his. So we're going to find out your view. Mm-hmm. It's not a matter of whether you agree with me. I'm going to challenge you because it's the most important issue. Mm-hmm. Overcrowding in the schools. You've said okay. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's some performance issues. We're not going to get any more money. We're spending $15,000 per kid per year. We can come back and talk about that another time. Trust me, folks, that's the number. Mm-hmm. $15,000 per kid per year. With all the financial woes of the city of Chicago, you're not going to get more money. What are you going to do to improve the quality of education for people in the 36th ward?
So I plan to work with our labor groups, with CTU and others, making sure that the things that we're providing, the resources and whatnot, for the teachers there, for our professional educators, so that they can give a great education.
But is it going to be different? Because I know you say you're opposed to charter schools, right?
Well, I'm not necessarily opposed. I do.
Are there charter schools in the 36th ward?
There are a few.
How are they doing?
I think that we have to look at data. There's a couple that are not. They haven't been around for too long, so we have to look.
So you don't know.
I would say that we have to take a look and see what
hypothetically, the mayor's a believer in that.
Sure.
There are about 50,000 of the 400,000 kids in charter schools in CPS total. Those are public schools. Mm-hmm. They receive public funds. They're not private schools, but they have a lot more flexibility. Some would say because of that and other reasons, they outperform traditional neighborhood schools. Would you be willing, as the aldermanic candidate, to look at that fairly, and if you decided that they were outperforming traditional neighborhood schools, would you like to see then more charter schools?
I would like to see data that actually shows those things that are unbiased.
Say you saw data. If you saw independent studies showing that, would you be open? Because Barack Obama once said here, he would do anything to improve the admittedly, this is his quote, admittedly intolerable conditions in the Chicago public schools. That was as of 2004.
Sure.
Would you agree with Barack? Would you be happy to be quoted as saying you would do anything to improve the admittedly intolerable conditions in CPS in 2014?
I would say this, that
or 2015.
I'm a product of CPS. I know that there's a lot of issues within the within CPS. We want to work on those issues. We have to take a look and to make sure that we have to make sure that we take a look that we are not making decisions hastily. That we take a look.
Okay, you do that.
Yeah.
Would you then consider if the best your best information, your best decision was you could improve the quality of education for Hispanic kids and other kids in the 36th ward by going to charter schools? Would you do it then?
It's a conversation that we would have to have with our community members. If
if they wanted it, then you would do it.
If that's what the community wanted, and after extensive conversation, then
well, after the show, you look, because I'm told the polling shows Hispanics in general are very favorable to charter schools. You find out that. If you're doubting that, you call the Illinois Policy Institute, you call the head of that, John Tillman, and if John doesn't take your call, you tell me. Because you want some serious information, you call the Heartland Institute, Joe Bass. And if either of those guys doesn't take your call, you tell them you're running for alderman and you want the serious scoop. You got it?
I'll say this, as speaking to someone that is a Hispanic himself and lives in a majority Hispanic community, that absolutely education is an important issue. We would want to make sure that we have a great education.
The most important issue. Maybe, well, but I know you're in favor of a progressive tax swap, so that would be important. Tell people in 30 seconds why are you in favor of a progressive tax swap?
A progressive tax swap, essentially, we believe that the way that we generate revenue in the city is not equitable. And so it's an idea that I'm coming in with, proposing to the city council, saying, let's find a way to generate revenue, yes, but in an equitable fashion, making sure that those that
So what does that mean?
So those that can't afford to pay more will pay more. Those
so where are you going to cut the taxes? Regressive sales taxes, is that what you're talking about?
What we're talking about is
lowering those fees and fines.
Fees, swapping
red light stuff, cut that out.
Exactly.
Cut out the fines. And where do you raise it?
And so we would raise it through a nominal increase in the property tax. And so the reason that I believe that the property tax form of generating revenue is an equitable way, because if you have a pretty if your property value is high, then you're going to pay higher taxes. If it raises, then it possibly goes up. If your property value lowers, then it will lower.
Tough issue. We got about minimum wages. You know, the city passed an ordinance raising the current minimum wage, which is statewide, $8.25 per hour, $8.25 to, and that's 2015, over time to 2019 to $13 per hour. Would you have supported that ordinance?
It's a good start. I would have liked to see an ordinance that would have had $15 an hour starting.
Would you like right now in 2013 you would go to $15 an hour?
Sooner than
right
later.
Now?
I would be a proponent for.
You ever hear the law of demand? You have studied supply and demand in school at Loyola? Did you know that when the law of demand says when you raise the price for something, the quantity demanded goes down? Are you worried that if you go from the current wages, which are like $8 minimum wage, to 15, employers might leave, they might hire fewer people, they might go to areas outside Chicago where the minimum wage is lower? Are you worried about that?
No, I think statewide we would like to see an increase as well.
If you're in the city of Chicago, you're an alderman, you can't do statewide. You can only do citywide.
I think that $13 an hour is a good start. I believe that
you don't think you're going to lose any jobs?
I think that it's going to be a benefit for more people. More people have money that they can.
That's your view, and you'd go to 15, and your opponent, we don't know. We don't even remember this guy's name. Seriously, because he's not here. So if you're a viewer, you don't know his position. He could have been here. He could have said, Jeff, can I do it another day? Could I do it another time? They didn't care about you. Not me. It doesn't matter to me. It just sounds like it matters to me because I care about you, my viewers, your voters. We so much want to thank Omar Aquino.
Thank you so much.
Omar's running for alderman. He's running in the 36th ward. He's told you where it is. You can find out more about him. Where do they go?
OmarAquino.com. That's OMARAQUINO.com.
And you're responsive right now. So if people want to call you and they want to leave a message and say, I want to speak to Omar Aquino, I want to decide my vote, you'll do that?
Absolutely. Every time I knock on a door, I tell people, here's my number, 773-344-0491. Please give me a call, because you can go on my website, you can read it, but as they say, it's better to hear from the horse's mouth, so I'd like to answer any questions I can. If I don't catch people at the doors, I'd like to at least give them, be able to talk to them over the phone.
All right. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Good luck on the campaign. We don't endorse, but we do endorse this. Everybody should do what Omar did. Come here, face some tough questions, tough issues, give his views, communicate with his potential voters. You had over 2,000 votes in that February 24th election. Your opponent had 1,900 and some. If you total them all up, okay, you had about 5,800 votes total.
Mm-hmm.
So about 3,000 should win it unless things change dramatically, right?
Yeah. Well,
So have you talked to 3,000 people who said, I like you, Omar?
I believe we've spoken to more than 3,000 people that have said
So
that
you
they
can
like
get
me.
3,000 votes?
I have no doubts that we will be victorious on April 7th.
We have as our guest Anthony Napolitano. He is running for, you've watched the first half of the show. We learned about the 36th ward. Now you're going to learn about the 41st ward in Chicago. He is running for alderman in the 41st ward. He's running against the incumbent, Mary O'Connor. Look, Mary could have been here. She showed absolutely no interest in being on the show. Because everybody would know, anybody might guess, we've had more than 800 in the last 18 years. If they want to be on the show, we'll work it out. We'll have them on the same day with the opponent. If we can't do that, we'll have them on separate segments. Look, I mean, Barack Obama, who's now president, from 2000 to 2004, he was on this show 6 times. If a guy who's going to be president of the United States has time to do the show, you know, if Anthony Napolitano has time to do the show, I think other people would have time to do the show. But anyway, it doesn't matter to me, but it is kind of an insult to you, my viewers, Anthony's voters, potential voters, because you would like to know the positions of the people running for office. You want to know Anthony Napolitano's position, but you also want to know his opponents, and she's not here. You got almost 6,000 votes, 42%. Mary O'Connor got about 6,700 votes, 48%. And Joe Lamonto got 10%, 1,400 votes.
Yes.
What's Joe doing in this race, has he said?
So far after the race, Joe's just kind of, he's
Kicking back and
kicking
taking it
back.
easy?
I think he wanted to relax a little bit, do some family time, and he's a family man, and I totally understand it.
Would you like his endorsement?
I would love his endorsement, but also, you know, it's a strong neighborhood and a strong family neighborhood, and I see it as in Joe kind of wanted to just sit back and see what happens and doesn't want to get involved too much anymore.
Tell us a little bit about the 41st ward. It's out near O'Hare Airport, is that
Yes,
right?
yes.
It's in, does it include all of Norwood Park, Oriole Park, Edison Park, Edgebrook, right?
Edgebrook, yes.
And then what else? Parts of other areas, right?
It's going to be the farthest northwest part of Chicago that you can hit. We border Niles to the north. We border Norridge. We border Howard Heights. A little bit of Skokie, and it's an area that actually moves to the east as well if it goes down like a 2-week corridor.
Does it include O'Hare Airport? Or
It does. It's
it does?
It is the biggest ward in the entire
They're
city.
like a constituent of yours?
The
airport,
Yes,
O'Hare Airport?
absolutely, yes.
Does it include Wildwood?
It does
Portions of
include-
that? Portions of
Wildwood.
Jefferson Park?
Yep.
Okay, so, and that's one of the issues, the noise pollution.
Oh, yeah.
And you say you're going to advocate for your constituents about that, but who do you advocate to and what do you do at this point?
Well, the biggest thing is you have to call a hearing. You know, we've been promised that.
You have to what?
Call a hearing. You have to have
A hearing?
Yes, yes. With
And who, what, the city council?
City council, you got to get the FAA involved. You have to get the states. You have to get the federal government involved. You have to let people know, and you have to let the city and the state know that this is a major issue. This is.
Is it getting worse?
It is getting worse. We're bringing more planes in. More planes are coming in every year. We're bringing more cargo planes are coming in. And the worst thing about this, if we don't do something about it, people, unlike myself, who has to live in the city of Chicago because I work for the city, they're going to leave. And when they do leave, the price of these homes are going to plummet. And it isn't going to be the same neighborhood that we know anymore. And these aren't going to be the same neighbors that we know anymore. And you're going to see...
Your incumbent says it's known as a tranquil, safe, wonderful place to live. People come there for the jobs, they come there for the schools, they come for the tranquil neighborhood.
Yeah.
Did she get that right?
It's a beautiful neighborhood. It is a tranquil neighborhood, but it's changing. And it's not the same neighborhood it was years ago.
How's it? Why? In what way?
Well, crime is up. You know, even
Crime is
though-
up, really?
Absolutely. Even though that they're going to say that the crime stats are down, well, those are election stats. Everyone knows. And people.
So what do you do? What would you do if you were elected as alderman for the 41st ward, and what would you do differently than the current incumbent?
I would definitely push for more police officers. We need to get at least anywhere between 300 to 500 more police officers on the street immediately.
But Ram says he got more, he just took him off the desk duty, put him out in the street. Do you believe Ram?
I don't doubt that that's what they did. Now, I know a lot of police officers that were on desk duty that are being put on the street, which leaves the desk duty empty.
So you still need more?
You need more. And
But you know the city's funding issues.
Oh,
Where do
yeah.
where do you get the money for 500 more cops?
Well, there's a lot of things we can do different. You know,
Yeah.
we can think outside the box. Why not advocate for a large land-based casino, a Vegas-style land-based casino?
Well, Ram says he wants it, but you know, you got to get, do you sort of need approval of the Illinois legislature for that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if we all come together and we're for it together,
So you would go down there and lobby, if you were the alderman, you would say
Absolutely.
part of your job is to lobby the state legislature for that.
Absolutely.
Support Ram on that.
absolutely.
Are you endorsing Ram?
I'm not endorsing anybody.
You're
at this
staying
point.
neutral.
I have to stay neutral. I have to worry about the 41st Ward. I'm willing and very excited to work with who's ever in the mayor's office. I would do no justice to my ward if I worked against the mayor. But what I'm going to do first and foremost is I'm going to work for my ward. I'm not going to be a rubber stamp for whoever is sitting in that office after.
Are you saying Mary O'Connor's a rubber stamp?
She voted in favor of the fifth floor 98% of the time. I don't even agree with my wife or my siblings 98% of the time. I absolutely believe that's a rubber stamp.
You want to be a full-time alderman? Is Mary a full-time alderman? Would you give her that?
She is not a full-time alderman.
She's not? What's she do?
She owns 2 businesses in that ward, and she's in those businesses a lot of the time. And she does treat that position as an alderman as a part-time alderman. Me,
She would stipulate to that if I asked her?
well, when you
If
know,
she were here, but again, we don't know because Mary, although we invited her, she's not here.
me personally, what I would do if I'm elected, you know, on April 8th, if I'm elected, I'm leaving the Chicago Fire Department. I can no longer work for the Chicago Fire Department.
Is that right? So you
That's
give that up?
absolutely right. It's gone, but I can't. It's not my choice. I have to leave, and I will be a full-time alderman for the.
You
fire
have to
department.
leave because why?
Those are the city rules. You
The
cannot
city
hold-
rules, you cannot have a city job while you're a city councilman.
Right, can't hold 2 positions. So by
You're
this-
okay with that?
I'm willing and able and excited about it.
You know, one of the issues is, and you're just one alderman, I understand that, but it's an issue in the mayoral race. How will we pay for these pensions? And they are actually the major, I think it's about a $550 million payment that's coming up this year, either 2015, 2016, and basically to pensions for firefighters and policemen. So somehow you're involved in that.
I got a lot.
Right, your pensions.
I've got a lot of family involved, a lot of friends, and as well as myself.
So how would you pay for that?
I'm a big advocate for using the TIF funds. We have $1.5 billion sitting in the TIF funds. Why aren't we using it? I
I
understand
mean,
those
they're not being used for anything now, that's just reserves?
There is some of that money that's earmarked for different projects, but
So how much of it is actually available to be used
I
this
cannot-
year if you
I
wanted
can't
to?
give you the exact amounts.
Approximately
That's
how
kind of-
much?
that's kind
Do you
of
have any
top-
idea how
I
much?
don't. That's a top
It's
secret
it's a
question.
top secret?
Yes.
Do you think you learn that once you become a city councilman or
I'm
not?
gonna make it my business to learn that. Yeah.
So if you've got bad neighborhoods or troubled neighborhoods and safety on the south and west side, you can't just say the 41st Ward's doing fine. Occasionally, your folks go down to Michigan Avenue. Occasionally, the bad neighborhoods visit that area. Occasionally, you get caught in the wrong spot.
Right.
So what do you say? What should we do about safety to improve it on the south side and west side?
Well, when you get.
Or do you
onto-
just say, that's not my problem, Jeff, I'm just focusing on the
Absolutely not,
41st
no.
Ward?
You can't.
Do
you
your
know what?
constituents, if you're the alderman in the 41st Ward, want you to talk about other areas of the city?
Yeah, because it's working for the whole city. Because if
It
the
is,
whole
yeah.
city doesn't function, the 41st Ward isn't going to function.
When you say we get it, who gets in the neighborhoods?
All of us. It can't just be.
What, volunteers you're talking about?
Volunteers, city council. I mean, people that are on city council should actually be going to these neighborhoods and seeing what's going on first.
So sort of like flood the zone. In football, we call it, you know, if you're down and you're a minute left and maybe you're losing by 3 or 4 points, you need a touchdown, you send 4 receivers out there, you know, and you flood the zone.
Right.
You put all your best guys with good hands to catch that ball. Everybody knows you're
Right.
throwing. So you flood the zone, throw a lot of folks, a lot of resources on the south and west side. You're okay with that, even though your ward's okay?
I would say
You're a
that
team player here.
I'm
You're
a
playing
team
for the
player.
city of Chicago.
It's about not giving up.
Okay.
Don't give up on the city. Don't give up on the children. Can't do it.
Same thing, so that's safety, but also with education, can you improve the quality of education in CPS? For the last 20 years, we've had reform. The needle hasn't moved at all. 20 years ago, in 1995, when reform started, we had about 25% of the black Hispanic kids reading at grade level. That's what it is now.
Right.
Haven't moved at all. What would you do?
You know what? I don't think we should be turning our backs on the schools. I think we should support
Okay,
our
so
teachers.
what would you do? Well, support the teachers, everybody says. Teachers in Chicago, did you know the median salary is $70,000?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it is very good.
Is that enough support for you?
Well,
You think that's the problem? They're not getting paid enough?
No, I don't think we should be closing the schools. Is what I'm saying. I don't
Well,
think
if
we
the
should-
schools aren't doing well and they're being underutilized, that's what Rom said, basically two things. Underutilized, some of them like 40, 50% utilization.
Right.
If you close and aggregate, you can have more resources per kid.
Yeah.
That's what he said. Do you buy into that argument?
I don't completely buy into that argument, because what you did too is when you close a lot of schools, you're forcing kids to travel to different areas to attend these schools.
That's what people said, but I didn't hear of one incident where somebody was hurt over the last year going to one of the schools that was open as opposed to being closed. Did you hear of one incident?
I mean,
Because
I'm always hearing of incidents.
No,
I don't
but
know if I can narrow it
because of
down.
that. But don't you think the media would have said, oh, this kid came from a school that was closed, had to go to another school? Here's an example. Don't you
Sure.
think somebody in the media would have highlighted that?
No.
Did you know they had this safeguard program
Yeah.
where they were doing it?
I've done it.
Is it possible it worked?
I've done
Is
it.
it possible it worked?
I've actually done the
Okay.
safeguard program, and
Okay.
I've seen it.
You did it?
Yeah,
Was it a good program?
It's good to have people out there. I can't say it's a bad program.
Barack Obama sitting, not in the same chair, but when we were taping him in Winnetka and Skokie when he was coming here in 2000, 2004, he said, Jeff, I will do anything to improve the admittedly intolerable conditions in the Chicago public schools. He said that in 2003, 2004. Would you say that now in 2015? Would
Well-
you agree with our current president as to what he said? Assuming I got that right.
Well, yeah, I mean.
He would do anything to improve the admittedly intolerable conditions. Would you do it?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, you have to. I mean,
Of course.
it's not
You sign on to
tolerable.
that.
Yeah.
Whether it's vouchers, whether it's charter schools, whether it's
I
doing
don't-
something
I don't
different.
support the charter schools.
You don't?
I'm
You're
not a
ruling
fan.
those, you're taking those
I'm
off the
ruling
table.
charter schools out.
What about Mary O'Connor? Is she taken off the table?
Supporting the charter schools?
Yeah.
What I know, she is supporting the charter schools.
She's supporting charters.
Yeah.
So that's the difference between you two.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't support the charter schools.
What about minimum wages? Because, you know, she voted against the minimum wage ordinance that raised the minimum wage. In Chicago, it's $8.25, because that's the statewide minimum wage. She would raise it as the mayor wanted in his ordinance. No, she voted against
She voted against
raising.
it.
He wanted to raise it, and it passed from $8.25 to $13 in the next 4 years. She voted against it. Would you have voted for it?
I would absolutely vote for it, and I think it should be done at a statewide level. not
So that's
just
the
in
difference,
Chicago.
that's an issue difference between you and Mary.
Absolutely. I would definitely.
Did you ever talk to her? Did you hear why she voted against it?
I didn't. I know she's only voted against the mayor twice, and that was one of them.
And I'll give her this, because I was there the day before when the workforce committee, I think that's what they call it, was discussing it. She said she's a business owner. She just fears a lot of businesses would leave the city. You'd have fewer jobs. Do you think Mary got that wrong?
Absolutely wrong.
All right.
Why would you leave the city of Chicago?
Well, if you have to pay more than your competitors, do you understand that logic?
Absolutely.
Because if people are outside Chicago, they're paying a lower wage. They may be able to then produce for a lower price,
Absolutely.
have more customers, especially if you're on the margins, if you're on the boundaries.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't think you might consider moving outside of Chicago a little bit, maybe 3 miles, where you could then pay what's called a market wage as opposed to an above market wage?
That's why I think it should be done at a statewide
No,
level.
but you're an alderman now. You had a vote, she had a vote,
Absolutely.
and you couldn't change the state. So assuming that's the case, knowing Chicago would have a higher minimum wage,
Yeah.
do you think Mary had a point there?
I don't agree with her point. I
You-
don't.
you disagree?
I
Okay.
disagree with it.
Okay.
I disagree with it.
Cool.
I absolutely support the increasing minimum wage. I support it.
Would you say you know the issues, you have a vision, and you speak out?
Absolutely, and that's why I'm here.
And that's why you're here. And your opponent, she can't really say she speaks out as you do, because she ain't here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anthony Napolitano.
Thank you for having me.
All right, take care.